Hello, welcome to the People's View. Today we have Dave Fredette. Dave, you have worked both for the county and for the city, and now you're just a county comptroller. Is that the
county treasurer?
Treasurer.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Can you tell our audience a little bit about what a treasurer's responsibility is in both the city and the state?
Sure. I did work for the city of Nashua for 22 years. Mm-hmm. I was the city treasurer and tax collector. Unfortunately, somebody's got to do it.
A friendly job.
And so that was a much bigger operation.
Uh-huh.
That job, I think one of the most important part of that job was we had to provide very good customer service, because under that area was the motor vehicle registration. Uh-huh. Which is a big area that most people have to deal with every year. Of course, the tax office, all the sewer billing. We basically did a lot of billing and collections for the city, along with the treasury functions. The treasury functions is really the investments of the funds, the selling of municipal bonds for the city. Those are the two big things that the treasurer is involved in. Plus a lot of work helping out other departments on different finance issues that they may have had. The county is strictly county treasurer, and it's basically the banking of the banking procedures for the county. They have a business office there, and I work with the business office. Now, like years ago, because I've been the treasurer on and off for 20 years for the county. Years ago it was a little bit more manual. Today you can do almost everything right on electronically.
Right.
So you can do it right from your own house, making transfers or whatever else you want to do. So the county has, at any given time, has between 100 and 130 million in the bank.
Uh-huh.
So we try to invest that money at the best rates we can get, but also make sure that it's protected. Uh-huh. It's not something you can invest in stocks or bonds or any of that kind of stuff. It has to be 100% safe, because that's tax revenue that will be used. So we basically work with usually around 6 or 7 banks in the state or in Massachusetts.
Oh, really?
And we have our main bank, which is Citizens Bank, but then we have a lot of others that we have long-term and some short-term investments with the banks. And so, of course, I have to help when the audit starts every year. And again, like I say, I work with the business office, and usually with one person there mostly who does a lot of the payments and collections and stuff like that. So,
well, you've managed it well so that there's always just enough in the bank all the time, so it keeps you taxing. Well, you don't have to.
Well, the more you can earn, that's income to the county, so that does help. Now, over the last 4 or 5 years, as you know, rates have been horrible. If you want to invest, if you want to borrow, they're great. But up until just recently now, of course, rates have gone up.
Right.
So we're getting decent rates again, which means a lot more, hundreds and hundreds of thousands more in interest income that we can get for the county. So that's good. That part is good. The county does not, I would be responsible for any municipal bonds for the county also, but they do not have any debt at all, Hillsborough County. I don't know if the viewers know about the counties in New Hampshire, but there are 10 counties in New Hampshire. Hillsborough is the largest of the 10 and actually the wealthiest. There's Rockingham and Hillsborough are large and wealthy, and there's some smaller counties up north that struggle a lot more. We have a lot more bigger tax base, of course.
Right.
So when you have a lot of industry, that helps. So that's why you need to be pro-business, because they pay a lot of taxes. So we always have a good amount of reserve fund in the county, which is very good.
I people like to see when I was up there.
Yeah, that's true. You were. Yeah, that's true. Yeah.
Was handled very, very well financially.
Yeah. So as you know, they put together their annual budget each year. It gets adopted at the end of June. I had to go attend a few hearings on that. I was there for the night that they adopt the budget. And they determine what they want to take from reserves to help with the tax rate. So that's always a big discussion. But the county is very important. A lot of people don't really know much what a county does,
Right.
but, they have the county attorney's office that does all the court hearings, court cases, except for murder. They handle all of that. We have a county jail that's very active. We have a fantastic nursing home in Goffstown, which is
Definitely.
great.
Yeah.
And we have the Registry of Deeds, which is a very busy office. And the rest of it is, we have the sheriff's office, and everything besides that is much more smaller. But those are the kind of the big functions of the county. And of course, you don't hear about the nursing home until you know someone in your family who needs it. It is a very nice nursing home, and it's quite large.
Yes.
And on the city side, like I said, it was a little bit more than just banking, although banking is important. But it was also the collection of a lot of income, either through motor vehicle registration, through taxes, through sewer bills, to parking tickets, which is a tough thing to deal with. So that was an area that was very active and very time consuming.
You get involved with some irate.
Well, usually when a customer was not happy, they would they would get me involved.
Oh,
And I've always tried to, do my best to get them to be at least satisfied. And, you're not always successful in that, but I have tried over the years to do that. I think we do give very good customer service.
so you explain the situation and what.
Yes.
Because a lot of times.
If there's a way you can help, I try to help. If there
Yeah.
isn't, I sometimes try to find somebody else who may be able to help the person. But, and most customers are very understanding, and, they understand what we have to do. It's just part of the job, but car registrations in every community in New Hampshire is the largest income producing pot besides taxes, besides property taxes. So Nashua brings in around 17 million a year in auto registration.
Really? Wow.
And of course, when you get somebody that's not from New Hampshire, they're not used to that. But I usually ask them, well, don't you pay a sales tax when you buy a car? And they go, yes. Well, it's
Same
unfortunately,
thing.
this is what we don't have a sales tax,
Yeah.
but we do have this fee. And it can be high on newer cars. And what happens is the first year the car is manufactured is the highest, and then the rate goes down for 6 years, and after the 6th year, it stays flat,
Okay.
whatever that is.
Yeah.
So, but they do raise quite a bit of money from that. And then again, the taxes that go out twice a year, and that, of course, is
You get involved there with people who have a problem with.
yes, problem with paying.
Yeah.
Yes.
Well, not only paying, but with just the rate that it is.
But not the rate. I mean, if people have trouble with their assessments, that is,
Somebody
they
else.
have to go to the assessment department.
Okay.
A lot of times people do think it's the tax office, but it's a totally separate group, and it really should be. You shouldn't be involved with both creating the assessment plus collecting the money. So, but yes, and of course last summer, I should say, summer of 2022 was tough for a lot of people because the city was mandated to do their annual reassessment of all the property. And I've been around for a long time. This type of economy that we have now is exactly like what was happening in 91, 90, where home prices were just unbelievable.
Right, yeah.
And so when you do a reassessment during that time, it's not good for a lot of homeowners because their values go up so much. It's hard to believe. I look every day online at Nashua's properties for sale and what is sold. I still do that. And I'm amazed at the prices people are getting for homes.
That's true.
You know,
Yeah.
it's amazing. I bought my first home in my first ranch in 1981, and I think it was about $50,000.
Yeah.
You can barely buy a car for $50,000
That's
today.
right.
So things have changed a lot over the years. But I liked working for the city a lot. I mean, I'm from Nashua, so I enjoyed seeing people that I hadn't seen in years, or just the people I've known for many years. I really never left the city. Prior to working for the city, I worked for, at the time it was called Sanders Associates, but it is now BAE. I worked for them for 24 years in finance also. So
They're kind of different, though.
oh, yes. Working for a private organization versus government is very different.
Well, how's that?
Each group has their own politics. Don't let anybody fool you about that. You have politics in a private company too, but it's just, I don't know. First of all, when you work for a Department of Defense company, your customer is not in every day like, we dealt with for the city. And it's at a bigger level and a higher level than working for the city, but I enjoyed it.
You get involved in more complex types of...
Yes. I wasn't, the whole company really is engineering and manufacturing. So I was on the finance side where you work on, they would call them projects or programs, and you would work on several projects or programs, and you have to budget, do reporting to the federal government. If it was the Army, if it was an Army contract or a Navy contract. Mostly I dealt with Navy contracts all the years I was there. So I originally started out there in payroll, which was a good group to start with.
How different is that from handling cities things? What's the difference?
Well, it's a lot different. I know. First of all, I wasn't a treasurer, but each contract or program has a group of people. So you work with the same people every day, basically. It's not like just people walking in out of off the street with problems and questions. It's a lot different than that. And you have to do a lot of proposal work, do proposals for new contracts that are coming up. So it was all money stuff, really. But I enjoyed it. I learned a lot from there. I got a good education through them because they had a good program back then on paying for college.
Oh.
They still do. It's not quite as good as it used to be, but the company has grown. But so when I left there, it was actually Lockheed Martin, and Sanders had been turned over a couple times. Of course, now it's BAE, and I know BAE has done great jobs. Has done a great job for the company. They've really done well. They have a big facility now in Manchester. I don't know if you've ever seen it, but
the new one.
Yeah, well, it was actually the Blue Cross Blue Shield building.
Oh.
In Manchester, and I think it was empty for a while.
Yeah,
and
that
BAE
was.
took it over, and I just went by it the other day because I went to the post office in Manchester for specific purpose, and the building was beautiful. They really did a nice job on it. Big building.
I thought they also built the building, didn't they?
Well, not out there. They might have in other areas,
Maybe
but I don't think
was.
out in Manchester anyways.
Okay.
But, it's too bad we couldn't have kept them in Nashua. But, I guess they must have looked, and that was the best location for them.
Oh.
They still have a big facility in Hudson.
Yeah.
And, of course, they have several in Nashua.
And they have
counting the old building on Canal Street that's been there for...
Well, it keeps looking like it's shrinking in BAE people.
They've had to put a lot of money in that building, I'm sure, because that goes back to the 1800s. I think that was the Indian, whatever the name of it was, but they made blankets and all that stuff for the U.S. government, I believe.
Oh.
It's a big building. It's
It is. Yeah. But so
the other part of the city and for the county, if I need it, is the city sells bonds almost every year,
right,
and to fund projects. And so I was heavily involved with that for all the years. You work with your financial advisors and your bond counsel. And in a simple term, a bond is basically a mortgage, basically.
Yeah, right.
You borrow money over a period of time. It used to be always 20 or less, But the last few years I was there, some of these bonds were 25 years. I never liked having a 25-year bond, but some of them we had to. And I think the big school project
Yeah.
is one of them. Now that, as you know, they're building a new middle school and they updated 2 of the other schools.
Right.
And that whole project was I wish I could remember the exact number. It was about 125 million.
That's about what the high school was, wasn't it?
Or when they built, the 2 high schools were done, there was 143 million.
Yeah.
That was a long time ago now. So that shows you how much. We built a new middle school, but I don't know if you've seen it, but it's quite large. It's the Brian S. McCarthy Middle School. It's not open. It won't be open, I think, until a year from this fall. The fall of 2024, I believe. And then they renovated Fairgrounds, and they're renovating Pennachuck.
Right.
So I think that whole project was around 125, 130 million. So of course you have to sell bonds to fund that.
Right.
And so you have to pay back over 25 years. Now, I was lucky over the last, since, I don't know, maybe 2011, 12, until just recently, the rates were so low. Excuse me. We could bond for sometimes less than 2%. I mean, that's pretty good. That's a pretty good rate.
Yeah.
Of course, now they've gone up to believe they're up to the 4.5%.
Do they vary depending on when the payback is, or is the one?
A lot of the bonds
are
are strictly level payments over 20 years, or some of them would be you pay off more principal at the beginning of the payments, and at the end of the payments, it's more in. No, I'm sorry.
The other way around.
More interest at the beginning and more principal at the end.
Yeah.
Excuse me. That you can save a little money, but of course it makes the payments higher at the beginning.
Yeah. Yeah.
So there's different ways of doing it. And it kind of depends, I think, on the size of the project and the years of the project.
But you must have had fun going around playing.
Well, that was you have to do a lot of work to sell a bond.
Yeah.
So each year we would sell maybe the fund maybe 3 or 4 or 5 projects at a time. You know, we would sell anywhere between maybe 15 million to 45, 50 million. It all depends on what you were doing that year, you know. So
Yeah, have you ever graphed that? See, look at what your history is versus what you're trying to do now?
Well, what we do now that we never had to do before is we bond for our road paving.
No.
That's a lot of money. The first part was 37.5 million, and the second part, which was approved by the Board of Aldermen and the mayor a few years ago, it's another 37.5 million. So all of that is bonded, and those are only 15-year bonds because that's the expected life of a road. Now a lot of them last longer than that, but you have to go with the expected life rate.
Yeah.
So that makes the payments higher because you only have 15 years to pay. So that plan is the first phase, anyways, was we were selling about 7.5 million each year over a 5-year period. That was the original plan, but it ended up being we sold really over about a 7-year period because you can only pave so many roads in a year.
Yeah, right.
It's not good for the traffic, as you know, causes problems, and the cost to pave is a lot more than it used to be also.
Oh, yeah.
So years ago, we would just pay cash and pave. We never could keep up with the roads, and even now I think they're still having a hard time, but I think this year I've seen there's a lot of paving going on in Nashua this year. It's my understanding they still plan to pave Main Street this fall.
Really? That ought to be fun.
A big portion of it. So I don't know how that's going to work, but that's what I was told anyways.
Oh, boy.
That they plan to pave Main Street this fall.
They'll probably have to wait until
they may have to take those barriers out earlier than planned, but bonding is a big thing. Now, the county is, like I said, has no debt at all. The last debt they had was for the prison or the jail in Manchester. That was that building was built maybe 35 years ago. And I think that was a 20-year bond. So after 20 years, It was paid off. So they don't have any debt now.
Oh, boy.
Doesn't mean that they won't. The other thing that the county received was these funds due to COVID,
Yeah.
and it was huge amounts of money. It was $84 million they received a few years ago. And a portion of it has to go out to every community in the county. I know Nashua got some, and nonprofits receive some, and then a portion of it is being used for stuff at the county level. I know the nursing home has been taking advantage of that,
Upgraded, yeah.
and there's some other projects that they are doing. And I think all of that has to be spent. I think it was a 6-year period, so they probably have about 3 to 4 years left to that, for
still.
that.
Okay.
But that's a big project. That's a lot of money, $84 million.
Yeah.
So, and we have to keep that totally separate from any county funds, of course.
Oh, you don't know how much the city got out of
Well, the city also got some money directly
Yeah.
a couple years ago. And I don't know. The school got some separately, and then the city did.
Oh,
I think the school got somewhere around 16 million over a couple years, and the city might have got around 8. It was given out 2 years in a row, a portion one year and a portion the next. And that was a few years ago. So now, I'm sure the schools are using it all in the school buildings. I'm sure that's basically what it is. And I think a lot of it might be security type things that they're doing with it, I'm not an expert on it. I'm not sure. You'd have to have somebody from the school department come in, but that was a lot. And of course, the city had a challenging time with the Performing Arts Center.
how did that go? Did that financing work
Well,
out?
we sold a normal bond for that, but part of it was a tax credit that we had to go through, which is a very, I can't even explain the whole thing, but it's very complicated. We never had one before. It's the only one we've had, although my understanding is the city may do one again. It's very complicated. It's a lot of work to it, but you get some money out of that. And I believe for the Performing Arts Center, they ended up with about $2.5 million. But, we basically had an attorney almost full time upstairs working on it. And we had the economic development that spent a tremendous amount of time on it. So that's done with. The bond was sold, and of course the building is open. They opened in April. I haven't been in it yet, so. But as soon as I see something I'm interested in, I'll probably go.
Yeah. It's a nice little tour. I was on a tour.
You have been on a tour?
Yeah. I wonder about a couple things because they can remove seats very easily.
Yeah, they're retractable.
Yeah.
That's a big feature that a lot of people like, I guess.
Well, I couldn't picture what they're gonna what kind of shows they have. It's not big enough for a hockey rink in
Well,
there
I think
or
it's
anything.
more for not conferences, but where they have trade shows and stuff like that.
I see.
I think
what it was
that's
supposed
part
to
of
be.
the plan is they would
I
like
don't
to have
remember
something
them
like
saying
that.
anything about that on
Yeah, I mean, I'm
trade show.
not an expert on it, but
Yeah. Well,
no,
I
they
guess
can't have hockey in it or anything. No way, it's not big enough.
But
no.
even a large play,
Yeah.
I was wondering how you'd really do a play with maybe 20 actors or stuff like that.
Yeah, well, I don't know because I know the actor singers are
Yeah.
still going to use Elm Street Auditorium. Of course, that's not the real name of it anymore, but
Well, how are they gonna separate that from the rest of the
yeah,
building?
again, that's a long-term plan because Elm Street, the middle school,
Right.
which was the high school I graduated from, you can tell how old I am. It's going to be closed next fall when the new one opens. They're going to have to redistrict the students.
Yeah.
And then I think there's plans. Revere College has some plan out there to build an ice rink. I don't know if you heard about
Yes,
that.
I did.
And then there's plans to maybe do some apartments type building renovations for the school part. But yes, they have to keep the auditorium separate. And I don't know if they're gonna. The auditorium is not in bad shape, but it really needs some type of renovations where they have more bathrooms for the public. Because it wasn't really built.
Yeah.
It was built in the 30s, so it's a lot different today. And so, but it's a beautiful auditorium. I think it's beautiful.
I always wondered why they didn't want to keep that separate.
Well, I always thought it could make a good performing arts center myself.
Oh,
if you put money into it. But
yeah.
you know, that was my view anyways, but now we have the new one, so I'm hoping everything works out with that. Because we have had problems in the past. We used to have a 14 Court Street, that was a
Oh, yeah.
art center, and they used to have, and they still have some shows there.
Oh,
but-
do they?
Yeah, they have, I think one of the younger, the children's group that works out there.
Okay.
But that is a older building too that
Yeah,
has had
yeah.
a lot of money put
No,
into
I
it.
went to a couple things over there, but that was
Yeah.
kind of small too.
Yes, that's small. Yes, it is small. But it's hard for the arts during certain times of the economy. I mean, there used to be a beautiful place in Milford years ago, American Stage Festival.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, that didn't last, but it was there for over 20 years
Yeah.
easily.
Yeah, I went out
Very
there
popular.
too. I go down to Lowell now,
Oh yeah. Well, they got a big place there. Yeah, they got a, yeah.
so I've been doing that.
Well, the
for-
same person I think managing Lowell is the company that is
really?
managing the one in
Well,
Nashua.
that's what I
They have a company that's managing it.
yeah.
It's not city employees.
But
And it's I hear very good things about the management company. And I think they do Lowell, they do, and I think they do one up in Manchester too, maybe.
well, I was wondering if they were large enough to handle the stuff that goes on in Lowell, because
I think they're a pretty big company actually. I don't, again.
I
I'm
mean,
not an
just the
expert on it.
type of different entertainment that they
Oh
have
yeah, well
down
it's a
there.
much bigger. Yes, yeah.
Well, they have the large one, very
Mm-hmm.
large one, and then they have the small, which is really comfortable
Yeah.
size.
I've actually never been to a show in Lowell.
Oh, you haven't?
No.
It's worth
I've been
it.
to a function there. It was beautiful, but not a show anymore.
Well, that place, they even had the Lipanza horses in there.
Oh, did
believe
they?
it or not,
Yeah, I
once.
believe it.
David, we're running out of time. I'm going to have you
Oh, that
back.
was fast. I'm
Wasn't
not sure
it?
I talked about what you wanted, but hey,
Well, we got to talk about it another time.
Okay.
Maybe 3 months from now,
sure.
when we get closer to the election.
Oh, yes, that should be interesting.
Yes. Well, thank you very much.
Thank you
your
for having
time.
me.
Okay.